So this residence, called Screen, the Lantern House, is set in a site that is covered in a typical northern Kerala landscape, set amidst cockland plantations and other local vegetation. A very quiet and tranquil setting that doesn't invite any kind of intrusions other than what is in default. Altering this and bringing about any kind of change called for a respectful approach. Thus, this house is considered as an entity whose external facade is assigned the duty of screening off the built from the unbuilt. This is done in an attempt to place the volume in the most subtle way by not having anything that lies in stark contrast with the context. Apart from that, the design of the facade metaphorically represents a lantern where the external envelope shields and glorifies the beauty of the inner core, the light, or the function. This screen or envelope of the house is lined with a layer of landscape in the inner periphery, acting as a filtering member for the light and sound from the outside. This enables a play of light inside during different times of the day. Also, fresh and humid air from the surroundings is brought in, filtered, and spread to different corners of the house. So this is the night view. Design follows a clean and straightforward elevation where windows and doors are wrapped inside the outer layers without revealing the identity, producing a monolithic form. Once entering the house, the visitor or the user is welcomed to a larger volume where all the common spaces are dynamically knit into one with an elongated water body by the entrance. Walls are intentionally kept minimal just to ensure the required privacy to provide an unfettered access to the landscape in the periphery. While the screen and the subsequent landscape layer control the view towards the inner areas, the users are able to have a filtered view towards the outside through the same, building interesting narratives during different times of the day. The screen thins the idea of having an opaque boundary to the volume inside, but serving its purpose of providing security to go with an absolutely open planning. The palette of color for finishes in the interiors is chosen from neutral to original shades without compromising the uncluttered appeal of the interiors. This has been a conscious decision so that nothing is out of the programmed harmony, which looks entirely in sync with the setting. At the same time, they help promote varying moods where the users, an NRI family of 4, can celebrate the wholesome experience of homecoming. The process behind delivering personalized and intimate spaces for each of the users from a common volume was very much intense, and the design ultimately went about having some delights like the floating deck by the living area that opens out to the garden, reading space in the extended stair landing, the bay windows, private little gardens for bedrooms, the skylights in the bathroom, and private balcony of the first floor bedroom overlooking the plantation, the terrace planters, and the prayer and meditation room in the ground floor with a perforated wall that brings in interesting patterns of daylight. The common volume has a circular opening in the roof, which serves as a major source of daylight and brings in the glimpses of the starry night sky. We have a small AV compilation of some more glimpses from the project. We have a video. A small video is there. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi. Uh, Firstly, congratulations on project well done.
Thank you.
I think these days with interiors, there seems to be this thing where it's sometimes seen as separate from architecture, and you have these mood boards with all this clutter just in terms of a justification of interiors, but that's not how spaces are experienced. And the tectonics of this has a very singular approach, which I think what we enjoyed as a jury is that is carried through in the interiors. The plants and the sort of like cocoon feeling that you get, and not much is done in terms of, in a good way, in terms of cluttering up the experience of it. The prayer room is, and I think photos really don't do it justice, because the prayer room in and of itself is really, really well done, because also if you're looking at something which is a sort of sacred space, you have to actually capture an energy, and the way you worked with light and the space is phenomenal. Having said that, one misses that aspect where in the prayer room you've kept the singularity of the vision of, I won't make a distinction between architecture and interiors, singularity of the spatial experience, and in the interiors, in the internality of it, you've elevated it to one other sort of crescendo. In the other spaces, one misses that. It like sort of comes in and then, so there is, I did miss that level of taking it through to a point where if what you achieved in the prayer room was there in all the rooms, the project would be elevated to one extent. And I think that's a danger of some projects where one thing works so wonderfully, and in a way when you sense it, it's easy to be satisfied there. But when you see the prayer room, you feel that things could have, even in the interior, without cluttering it, the experiential aspects could have been elevated far more. And I think in the central space where you have that globe kind of thing with the reinforcement and the skylight on top, and what's good is that, when you're there, you see all these different sort of volumes and elements. So one can see it act as the heart of the house. But having said that, it doesn't come together. It's coexisting in that space, but it doesn't sort of come together to pack a punch where one could have imagined it doing that. So yeah, all in all, I think what we found very refreshing about the project is that it had a sort of quiet confidence in its sort of spatiality, not to really go against the grain in the interiors as some projects now tend to do. And for me, the plants and the way you've used it is like a very refreshing, and I think going ahead, a very good way to approach interiors rather than a lot of consumptive materials that we tend to now focus on. So thanks.
Thank you.
I have very little to add to that, but still let me dare to do that. I feel the strategy of building an interior typology which is responsive to its environment is highly commendable, in my opinion. You have created this simple screen which moderates the sunlight, very important, the glare that we get otherwise, and you have used additionally plants to create that freshness. And of course, who doesn't like a tree or a green plant? I think all of us are very sure that green is actually very attractive. So you have got that inside your spaces. What I liked also is a neutrality of the space that you have created. It's almost like a large, it feels a bit like that, a large shed. It has that. The volumes are such, the geometry, the simplification of the geometry is as such. And I agree with Amrita, what comes additionally as a surprise are these little bedroom pockets, the prayer room, which you feel like you can use and live in very comfortably because of the green around and the moderation of the light. What one misses is certainly that has nothing to do with your architecture, though, is that there are not people living in it, that they're NRIs, so that additional energy that a space requires through the use that you infuse into a building, it is missing. So that way, of course, that's not your responsibility. But I can imagine in this house, 15 people, 20 people coming and actually living in this house.
That's what the intention was. While they are home, they'll have all of them.
Yes, and it feels like.
Yeah,
No,
I
no,
get it.
it's- and it feels like that we can have that. So that way, it's very commendable work that you have put together. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Moving on to the next entry, number 7/1008, Risma